evening, everyone.
Hey, Sherry.
Today is October 17th, 2018, and I'd like to call the order of the meeting of the Central Health Budget and Finance Committee. Agenda item 10 is postponed until the next Board of Managers meeting, and it is 10. Receive a report of preliminary September 28, 2018 financial statements from the Community Care Collaboratives. Agenda item 11 will not be discussed as well, and it is 11, discuss and take appropriate actions on the 1115 Medicaid waiver, delivery system reform incentive payment, DSRIP project, the Community Care Collaborative, including healthcare delivery arrangements, and other interrelated community partnerships. The rest of the items will be taken as they are posted. Agenda item 1, approve the minutes of the following meetings of the Central Health Board of Managers, Budget and Finance Committee. A, August 8th, 2018, and B, September 26th, 2018.
I move that we approve the minutes for the Central Health Board of Managers Budget and Finance Committee meetings for August 8th, 2018 and September 26th, 2018.
Second.
So I have a motion by Board Member Valdez, seconded by Board Member Greenberg. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. That motion passes. Okay, agenda item 2, discuss and take appropriate action on the following related to school-based counseling and crisis services performed at AISD, Austin Independent School District. A, an amendment to the agreement between the Community Care Collaborative and Integral Care for Behavioral Health Services, and B, an increase to the Central Health fiscal year FY 2019 member payment to the Community Care Collaborative. Mr. Giebel.
Yes, thank you, members. Members, you all have seen this issue before. It was brought up during the budget development process, and it is a temporary or a stopgap measure for funding for mental behavioral health professionals to be on Austin Independent School District campuses. The memo, we've changed the date, but essentially the content is the same as what you saw the last time, as well as the business plan that was presented by Integral Care. And what we're asking you to do tonight is, you've instructed management to include amounts in the budget, which you did. And now the action is to make an additional member payment to the CCC, because our contract with Integral Care is through the CCC, and then you're enabling that contract amendment to be made to provide those services on those campuses. So that's a summary of the action that we're asking for. The amount is still the same, $420,000. We will work with Integral Care through the CCC in amending the contract. Unless it substantially changes, I don't anticipate that coming back to this body, and so this authorization tonight would enable us to take those steps. Now, this matter, it will be recommended up to the full board. Next week, I understand, Member Valdez, after speaking with you, has some questions, one of which I will not be able to answer this evening, so I'll need to bring Integral Care staff in to be able to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giebel. All right, I need a motion.
For the record, should I go ahead and just wait till next week after I've gotten additional information, or should I just go ahead and list my concerns briefly?
Oh, let's make the motion and then we can discuss it.
Okay.
Okay, this is item number 2, correct?
Yes.
ma'am.
I move that the committee recommend the board approve and direct the Central Health appointees to the Community Care Collaborative Board of Directors to approve an amendment to the agreement between the Community Care Collaborative and Integral Care for behavioral health services to include school-based behavioral health services, and to increase the compensation available to Integral Care by $420,000 for these services.
Second.
You want to take these separately, or do you want to just
Oh, wait,
make more motions?
there was more to it. I further move that the committee recommend the board approve an increase to the Central Health fiscal year FY 2019 member payment to the Community Care Collaborative by $420,000.
I'll second that.
Okay. So I have a motion by Member Greenberg, seconded by Member Musaitif. Yes, ma'am. You want to go first? Discussion?
Yes, can I?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think this is a really important issue in addressing mental health in our students and investing in our future, I believe. So my question is really probably a Mike question, or I may have misplaced. So the $420,000, Did we initially allocate this? Was there a placemaker somewhere? Where's this money coming from?
It's coming from the fiscal year 19 budget that was recently adopted.
So we allocated this funding?
Yes.
Okay, no, that was just a clarification that I really wanted to know. Definitely support this item. Thank you.
Okay, with respect to what I have read here, for those that may not know, I was and have continued to be an advocate for our special education and 504 students, and have been through the ART process, been through the BIP development process, which for those that may not know, Behavioral Intervention Plan, and have worked with all the team members in developing an appropriate BIP, culturally and linguistically competent BIP for the student based on their IEP, which is their individualized educational plan. All these acronyms that come up into play. By law, under child find and everything else, a teacher or a professional in the school system is to recommend, as soon as they see a student develop some needs, regardless of what they may be, either access to resources, special education services, 504 services, behavioral issues due to either a medical or a mental health diagnosis, etc. And in that, once they're identified, you have the meeting with the parent and you talk about all the things that are available for them and then you help train the parent and educate the parent as to, educate the parent as to what services are available to the student and to the family, because it's not only about the student, it's also about.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to adjust the volumes.
No, está
we were
bien.
called for that. I'm really sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And so this is an ongoing process throughout the period of time that that child remains in the school system, which could be anywhere up to 18, from 18 up to 22 years of age. And so, having lived in that world for all my daughter's years, one of the things that we had experienced, several of us who were advocates, who worked together, especially for those students that were other than English speaking, is that we found that there was a huge disparity gap in students that lived or that didn't speak English in the bilingual program, and also those that lived in poverty neighborhoods as opposed to wealthier neighborhoods where there were more resources that the school could provide outside of what AISD could provide. And with respect to the BIP, which almost everything that I'm reading here that Integral Care is doing, that's almost the entire, this is like the development of a BIP, a behavioral intervention plan. Tells you what happens when, whatever. And then in the IEP includes the BIP and additional services, including non-educational funds that are available to the student during holidays, during the summer, during spring break. All of that is included in the plan. And so what I want to know is, what students are we going to be covering with respect to this? What students are being targeted? Are they kids that are already identified? Are they kids that are not identified? And if they're not identified, why are we waiting until middle school or high school to get there? Because that's contrary, unless they just entered the system. Or if they came from somewhere else, then why didn't they pick that up? Because then somebody dropped the ball somewhere in that child's life. Also, the school district doesn't have a very good reputation for providing appropriate BIPs for the minority students and people that don't speak English. And that's a service. It's not a service and it's not a privilege. It's a right that that child and its parents are entitled to. So as a right, then is this something that AISD or any other school district that we might be able to include in this contract? Is this something that AISD or the other school districts did not take responsibility for, or did they contract these services out, and therefore now they're not being provided anymore, and so we're stepping in to help provide those services? But the point is this: We need to know the students. Are they those students in that world that is covered by law to have received these services? And if so, why are we providing them? Okay, because those are dollars that could be freed up for something else. And unless we know exactly what they're talking about, who they're talking about, and how that's going to work, I think it's important that we get that information. Even if we have an AISD person who's the point person for AISD, probably under special ed or somewhere else, and then the IC person who works with the school district to make sure that that student's needs are included in the appropriate academic plan and behavioral intervention plan. And if this is an additional service, separate and apart than what's supposed to be provided by law, then where is that? Because all those things that are addressed here are exactly what should be included by law in the plans for those students, either special ed or whatever, and those especially with the mental health due to a medical or a mental health diagnosis.
Ron?
If I'm not mistaken, I think the school district lost a funding, and I think it was part of probably 1115 waiver or so, and in the way how they changed the methodology. So we're actually stepping in. We don't want to break in service. I think that's really the issue, bulk of the issue why we're funding this. Because, and plus, we as Central Health Board, we don't have much control with the school district as well and the students as well. But I think what we're doing here and thinking of mental health and addressing and filling a gap that a funding that they've lost due to some changes. So that's what I understand. Is that correct, Mike?
So, yes, ma'am. Then if I may, I'd like to come back and address Member Valdez's concern as well. So yes, I mean, there was a loss in funding. We were originally approached to fund, I believe, 1.5.
1.8 almost.
Well, it was adjusted,
Yeah.
but around the neighborhood of 1.5 million. We looked at it and made the determination that I want to focus on those that do not have a form of insurance or any form of payer. And so that,
30%.
when you do the math, that came out to $420,000. And so, we didn't fund the full request, but we funded what we felt like that we could legitimately fund in accordance with our mission. And so that's the essence of this right here. It is also stopgap, or let me rephrase that, it's also temporary, meaning just for this school year alone. There's already a working group that's been convened to figure out what is the long-term strategy, which may or may not involve us. I mean, we're stepping up to the plate just in a limited sense. Getting back to Member Valdez's concern, this one thing I need to clarify, that when you say those identified or not identified under a behavioral intervention plan?
No, under Child Find,
Under Child Find, okay.
and which is a federal law.
Okay,
And every school district in the United States has to comply with that.
right. So when we put this together, literally it was as a contingent or a temporary form of funding. We did, and this is directly with Integral Care, we didn't get into AISD in terms of their compliance with these federal laws around providing mental behavioral health. However, we can certainly bring somebody back to the next board meeting to answer some of these questions about what the school district does, or we can send a memo or put something on the message board, or all the above. But then we can certainly fold this into the longer term discussions, because I think it's a good point. Are we funding something that is required of federal law
Right.
if we continue with this?
That's right.
All right, understood.
And that was my reason for asking for clarification with respect to what student population are they trying to address and provide services to. It was a district project, and they're not being provided that services by contractors that we work with and pay lots of money to. And so that is a big, that's tragic, especially if I were a parent who who had a child that failed to receive services because somebody did this. But also, what I want to understand here, and what I want to reiterate to all of y'all, is that if this is a different population than what should be required by law to have been provided these services, then as a district project, sometimes when people write district projects up, they may not necessarily know what these other laws really should be providing, if they're maybe not in that world, I don't know. But if it's part of the protocol of mental health and due to medical or behavioral problems due to medical or mental health diagnoses, which the school district is required by law to provide all those services. And I know all the payers, Medicaid, et cetera, so all these other entities pay in to the bill for the services that each of the students get, because we would get a bill that would talk about what Medicaid had to pay for my daughter while she was receiving all this, including supports from MHMR, before they changed over to whatever they did and now they're IC. So I just want to make sure that we're not duplicating services to the same population, which should have been receiving them by law. And if this is the case, then we have to work with our partner in AISD to make sure that they understand that they are not fulfilling the needs of these students or the parents and the families and the supportive training and non-educational funds and educational funds throughout the school year, with the academic year, and that that's against the law, and we shouldn't be picking up the cost for them not complying with the law. I understand a temporary need based on what we've been told, but I just want to make sure that we have exactly all the information in place so that we can help them resolve these issues in the future. That's all.
Andrew Jones.
Yes, help me recall now, I remember us discussing this. Why AISD only?
Because it's got the biggest recapture.
So we were approached by AISD, and this was part of their budgeting process, to fund this larger amount. And really, to answer the question, they approached us, but it was understood that the most that we could do would be provide some temporary stopgap funding for just this school year. Assuming that Integral Care was able to continue, which when the school year started, Integral Care, I think, continued to pay for the costs for these counselors to be in the school. It's not something that we intentionally targeted as a strategic play, for example. And so that's why I think that, it's important for there to be a longer term, because if we do engage in this longer term, it's going to open up these other issues of what about Mayer, what about Pflugerville, what about Del Valley, other schools that are in Travis County as well. And quite frankly, we don't, we haven't built that into our 5-year financial forecast to be able to support that kind of
Or
operation
strategic plan.
at these levels, or our strategic plan.
Well, and I'll raise it at the strategic plan committee, but I do think that the AISD's population is really changing, and we know all the reasons why. So the question is, we need to encourage, and I'm not saying we're not, but look at how we can support some of these other school districts, particularly those on the eastern side of the county, where many of those folks who started in AISD are now over here, and the support that they got are not able to be continued because the resources are not as strongly there. But they are still part of Travis County, and so we still have an obligation to that. So I think we probably need to raise that discussion in our strategic planning committee to look at not only along this, but other initiatives that we do with the independent school districts as well. So I raise that just as a point of discussion.
Yes, sir.
Daniel.
I'm good, thanks.
You can.
I wanted to say really quickly, I appreciate the point that $900 is making. We don't want to duplicate services. It looked to me reading this like they were trying to figure out folks that don't have a diagnosis and they want to provide services to make the diagnosis, right? So if someone doesn't have something on record but they become depressed for some reason, this service would help to find them and help them. But I'd like to check that too, so thanks for raising it.
I will tell you that what Manager Aikens said is correct. These are children who have been healthy, and because of everything that's going on in the school, that Manager Jones brought it up also as well, you know, gun violence and bullying and everything that's been in the media. They needed the funding to try to help those children as well. Manager Valdez.
And just one last thing, with respect to what the schools are required by law to provide, it makes no difference whether or not they have status or not, no legal status, or whether they have insurance or not insurance. Just so long as the students have been identified, they then need to be immediately placed on within their realm and given the extent of the services that they're entitled to by law. And so that's what I'm going with this.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Manager Greenberg, seconded by Mayor Musaitif. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against say no. Any abstentions? Motion passes. So we got two abstentions, so we got 5. So we have 5 pass. All right.
And 2 abstentions.
And you can we'll bring somebody in, won't we, Mike?
Yeah.
We'll bring somebody from IC
Yeah.
next week.
I see.
And then you can pull it off the agenda, consent agenda.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So the record will reflect that Manager Jones and Manager Valadez abstained.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, yes,
Right.
sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. All right, item number 3, discuss and take appropriate action on the agreement between Central Health and ARC Abatement Limited for asbestos abatement services and selective demolition services. Stephen, no, wait a minute. Yes, Stephen. Thank you, Mr. Lamb.
Good evening. Thank you. I did not prepare anything tonight. There's a memorandum in your package, but I will just very briefly talk to this contract. This is really probably the first active step that Central Health is committing towards redevelopment of the Brackenridge campus or the downtown campus. We issued a public RFP in August. We had bids received in September. We brought a couple firms in to interview them because this is not only on price, but it's really on scope and capabilities. I just pick on Bob, but if Bob Instruct is a certified asbestos abatement contractor, he could do this, but it might take him a year. We don't have a year to do this because of other obligations. So this firm is qualified. They're based out of Houston. They have 35 people committed to this. They have a defined schedule. They have additional resources that they've committed to providing, pulling from Austin, San Antonio, or Dallas as needed. So it's a decent firm. This is for asbestos abatement. Our formal requirements are only to remove, in terms of contractual requirements with, say, the 2033 fund, are to abate asbestos in the professional office building on Block 164, and then within the northern portion of Block 167. This is a contract to abate everything in a non-occupied facility. So the CEC complex is excluded, that is leased by Seaton through September of 2024. This excludes the garage on Block 168, excuse me. So everything else on campus will be abated. The contract value is approximately $1.125 million, if I recall. Earlier we had budgeted tentatively $1.8 million, so this is a positive step for us. We had bids for the full spectrum from probably $800,000 to over $2 million. So this seems to be a valid contract.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Yes, ma'am.
So I just have one quick question. You said bid, but it sounds like this was more of an RFP type because you
Yes.
were looking not just at price, but at their competencies, correct?
That is correct,
Okay,
yes.
so it wasn't,
Yes, a key decision factor was obviously price, but schedule and resources were also evaluated. So it wasn't purely a hard bid or an invitation for bids,
yes.
yes.
right, okay, thank you.
Let's get a motion on the floor first.
I move that the committee recommend the board approve an agreement between Central Health and ARC Abatement Ltd. for asbestos, I can't even talk anymore, abatement service and selective demolition services in an amount not to exceed $1,124,500.
So I have a motion by Board Member Musaitif, seconded by Board Member Jones. Any discussion? Board Member Musaitif.
Well, thank you, humble Stephen. I have a question in terms of timeline. What are we looking at?
Contract commitment is for 95 days. This is one of multiple efforts that need to be coordinated and sequenced. we have the CEC alternate utility, not to digress a little bit, but we have the CEC alternate utilities project. We don't want to strip off the asbestos containing products on those lines until they are decommissioned. Steam, compressed steam basically runs at 240 and higher degree temperatures, so we don't want to expose that for safety issues. And then on the chilled water lines, if you take off the insulation, then those are routed through the utility tunnel as an example, so then we end up with condensation all over the floor, so that becomes a safety hazard. So I think we'll probably mobilize in mid-November. There's a 10-day notification period to pull an asbestos certification and permit. That is done by the contractor, so there's a 10-day notification period. So I think they'll probably start in mid-November. The actual phasing from there ties in with other efforts that we're doing. So sorry, I don't have an exact answer for you, but we expect between now and April, May timeframe, this contract will be completed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Board Member Valdez?
So you said that this is not a hub contractor?
Correct.
Were any contractors that were hubs, did any of them submit? Did any hub submit?
No.
How many contracts were there? Is it possible, is that okay to ask?
Yes, Council.
You can ask how many people prepared proposals as part of this. I don't know if Stephen has the answer for that.
I think we did a pre-bid walk. Obviously, we needed to show the facilities. I think we had 7 different firms show up for that, and we received 3 bids. I think we received 4, but 1 was withdrawn, so I think we had 3 actual bids. And none of those were hub contractors. This is a family-owned firm. They do everything themselves. They do not subcontract anything. So there was limited opportunities. Now, there is a sort of a partner agreement with this. Early in the last year, we hired Intercon to basically detect and verify the quantity of asbestos and then prepare specifications and bid documents for it. So that was phase 1. Phase 2 of their scope of services, which the board previously approved, will be to monitor and basically make sure that this contractor is in compliance with all legal requirements for risk management, and they will be doing background air monitoring. They have committed to engaging hub consultants or subcontractors to do the background air monitoring. So out of a $100,000 potential $150,000 contract, we should pick up probably 10%, maybe more of that value for air monitoring. But I
Okay.
don't have an exact quantity now.
And so it is within our legal responsibility, it's within our contract, our agreement, to cover the asbestos?
With 2033.
With anybody, I guess, with respect to, because you're in the overview, you did state that typically, real estate developers typically exclude all environmental remediation and responsibility. This is an expected central health obligation. So is it a legal obligation is what I guess I'm asking.
It is an obligation for some entity to remove the abatement before you can demolish a building. So it's not really a central health obligation. From outside development perspective, when we went through the preferred master developer RFQ and RFP process, the assumption by the proposals that we received were that central health would abate and or remediate any environmental hazards. In the commercial real estate entity, if I'm buying a building, then I'm either going to throw money at it to cover my risk, or I would expect the existing owner to perform that remediation and abatement. This is probably cost effective for Central Health compared to farming it out to another party. They would have project management fees and development fees on top of that.
Okay, so I guess I just want to make sure that I understand in layman's terms or layperson's terms. Seton had control of the buildings prior to Central Health in 2004 acquiring that. And so when they moved off the property onto their own site and left the building in the condition that they left it, what I'm trying to get to is, would they not have been expected to provide at least some form of compensation for that, for what they left?
Short version is no, they did not have an obligation. When the Brackenridge was conveyed from the city to Central Health, it came with all, it was as is, all environmental hazards came with it, including anything subsurface. If Seton created the environmental hazard during their occupancy, then they were obligated to correct that upon departing. And most of this abatement, Can I guarantee that 100% of this was not added during Seton's occupancy of the building? No, but the vast majority of it has been there an awfully long time.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And just one last one. On the ones that submitted, were there any locals that submitted a contract? They were all from out of town?
This firm, the other two firms that proposed, I think, were both out of Dallas. Now, they both have local offices, but their headquarters were Dallas. This is, this is a large project, so
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of the smaller firms that might have wanted competed dropped out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, so we have a motion on the floor by, is it Maram, and seconded by Manager Jones. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right, item 4, discuss and take appropriate action on the amendment to the agreement between Central Health and Braun and Butler Construction for construction manager at-risk services in connection with the construction, planning, and installation of alternative utilities for the clinical education center located at the Central Health downtown campus. And that's you again, Mr. Lamb. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick background, the Seton Central Health lease agreements for the CEC complex originally provided that Central Health would run the central plant to provide critical utilities for the CEC to operate. We did a business case study that said if Central Health did it alone, it would save us significant cost over the 7-year term of the lease agreement. We also then did a business case for Seton and convinced them that they should reimburse. It's to their cost savings as well an advantage to basically reimburse the project costs. And in the contract terms, they've agreed to reimburse up to $2,040,000. So previously, we presented a contract with an estimated project cost of $1.8 million. The engineer's estimate was around $1.6 million. I thought that was a little bit low. Candidly, I thought we should be able to complete this for about $1.8 million. But after competitively bidding and walking through all of the scopes of work with subcontractors, we are at $1.93+ million. So that is the reason for the change. 3 months ago, the original pricing, we were at $2.6 million. The advantage of a construction management agreement is that basically we engage them during the design phase, and before we lock into specific contracts, say, okay, well, this is ridiculously priced, right? I thought the $2.6 million was ridiculously priced, so let's go back and find a different way to do this. So over the period of really the last 2 months, we've worked with the design team and literally walked every line of pipe and said, why are you connecting there? Connect over here and save some money. So we are down to the $1.9 million range. We have additional potential savings. We need some operation from Seton, which I think, again, since it's sort of a pass-through cost to them, we think they will agree to it, and we are doing some additional procurement methods, potentially to buy used equipment rather than brand new equipment for some additional savings, but nothing is guaranteed at this point. And concept is not it's not a large project. I mean, $1.9 million is not insignificant, but it's not huge. It is a complex project. It's not a production type job. So the types of plumbers that could show up here, if you're doing multifamily housing, plumbers come in, you've got a piece of copper pipe or plastic, and one guy's running around and it's pure production and profit. This is 16-inch diameter steel pipe. 10-foot length of that pipe weighs 600+ pounds, so you have to do rigging, you have to do welding. It's just a different skill set. So a result of market conditions, a result of market labor force and skill sets. We had very good participation in the walkthroughs by many subcontractors. A bunch just dropped out because it's just not what they do on a routine basis, and it's complicated. You start over there, you have to go over here, you have to go over here. It's just not a production type project, but this is, never happy with contractors, but I'm reasonably pleased with Braun and Butler at this point in time. So we've done a good job controlling the costs, and it is what it is at this point in time, is the simple fact. I mean, I'm never happy coming back and asking for additional money, so you can blame me or fault me on that. Something that we need to do is something we should do long term. It still saves us money. And this is also part of the overall preparation for demolition in the next phases.
Good. Thanks, Stephen. I need a motion. Okay.
I move that the committee recommend the board approve an amendment to the agreement between Central Health and Braun and Butler Construction to add exhibits that reflect construction documents and the guaranteed maximum price proposal of $1,935,525 for construction phase services to be performed in connection with the installation of alternative utilities in the Central Health downtown campus.
I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
But I would
Motion-
like to make a comment.
Okay, hold on. I have a motion by member Aiken, seconded by manager Valdez. Now we can have discussion.
Hi, Stephen. When we let contracts like this, because it's saying that we had approved a 1.8 million, now it's 1.9, then they've gone back and it was gonna be over 2 million, blah, blah, blah. Do we ever ask anybody to put up a bond? In case there's cost overruns or there's cost increases? Is that something that, I know other entities do that?
We do. If there's, basically, we did not require a bid bond because this is a different type of agreement. This is a construction agreement. We're really buying two scopes of services. One, I will call it design phase services. We had gone through probably 50% of the design, and we went to engage the contractor at that point in time because this is not a production type project. It's not start over there and finish the pipelines over there. There are multiple outages. This becomes more complicated. We engage a construction manager, so we want them to engage subcontractors and use their knowledge and say, okay, this needs to be coordinated. We need to do multiple outages. How do we minimize the outages? This will be an occupied building, the CEC complex. So we want to minimize complaints from Seton and other tenants in the building. So it was not a pure lump sum bid where you would require a bid bond. Now, we do have performance and payment bonds on any contract value over $100,000, so there will be a performance and payment bond by the construction manager, and any subcontract that exceeds $100,000 will also have P&P bonds. If that explains it.
It does a relatively good job of explaining it, thank you to a layperson. But I think it's just important that we try and do whatever we can to make sure that we have as much in our costs covered, so that it doesn't end up showing to us that we're actually realizing less of a benefit to us as far as revenues goes, because we have these cost increases, regardless of the reason, okay? And we're going around telling people, oh, well, this is what our benefit's gonna be, and it's really not. It's less than that, because we've gotta pay for all these other things. That's all. Thank you.
If I may, one of the benefits of a guaranteed maximum price and engaging the construction manager during the design phase is they can say, oh, I didn't know that was required. It's like you've been involved in the design process. You've literally walked every inch of this project with me and the design team. So you know that you need to connect over there and you need to take down the ceiling tile to get there. So I don't want to hear about frivolous changes in the future. There may be changes in scope. There are things in that building where piping and wires snake all over that complex. We've turned valves over here, and then 2 days later, we've realized that there's a leak 200 feet away. No logic to it, so we will run into some strange things. But the benefit of a guaranteed maximum price is basically, unless there's a scope change based on their experience and participation in the design phase, and even contributing to design recommendations and controlling the scopes of work to their subcontractors, they own it.
It's something
So
that we
there's
agree
much
to.
greater leverage.
Okay, thank you very much.
Manager Musetta.
Yes, thank you. Well, before I have another comment. So the first item, agenda number 3, you exceeded, and then you lowered. So so there's actually.
Bless you. Bless
So you don't feel bad for asking more money. Initial item, you budgeted, you over budgeted, and you didn't need the amount allocated. So anyhow, so I don't know if you can answer this question in open session or not, and it relates to others previously using our utilities. I'm just being as vague as, I don't know if I can ask this question. You know what I'm implying?
I'm gonna talk to the attorney.
Let Holly opine on that.
Yeah, you need to talk to Holly.
Let me know what the question is, and then I can tell you whether we need to be in executive session.
So I can. So as you know, I think I mentioned this, or probably everyone knows that Health South has been using our utilities for the past, since I don't know when. So where are we in terms of how much technically, if they owe us or not, for going free? Are we gonna leave them off the hook, or what is the city owe us? What in terms of contracts?
We have prepared several invoices to them and a summary of the cost. We don't have it, Health South is not any separate metering system, so we can't define or identify exactly how much chilled water or steam they've used, so we're doing that on a square foot basis. So we have the main hospital tower, we've terminated all heat to that, so the only heating sources are going to support the CEC and Health South. So on that square footage basis, we did a sort of pro rata assessment, said, okay, city, here's your share. We have had several meetings, and we're meeting, I think, next week again, on multiple central health city issues, and Health South is one of those to include. You've been sort of getting free utilities for a while, so we expect that to be part of the compensation agreement with Red River and other factors. It's not a standalone issue at this point in time. I wouldn't say they've ignored us, but they haven't responded to us either.
Just to tie this back, will you remind us what will happen when we install alternative utilities? Will Health South be cut off?
Yes.
And yes, we gave them notice
Opportunity.
more than a year ago.
So they're aware of it?
They're aware of it, yes.
Okay, I just wanted, okay. Well,
Yeah,
thanks.
we've coordinated with them, we've actually worked with them, we've actually suggested some things to save them some money. They were doing temporary projects, I was like, why would you do that? Because this is coming, okay. So.
Well, as you know, as a board, we want to be good stewards to our tax dollars. We want to make sure that everything's transparent in terms where our spending is and what we are obligated to provide or not. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Manager Aiken, seconded by Manager Valdez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Agenda item 5, discuss and take appropriate action on the interlocal agreement between Central Health and the Region 8 Educational Services Center for cooperative purchasing services through the interlocal purchasing system, the TIPS program. Mr. Fennell.
Thank you, Chair. This is an item to request approval of an interlocal agreement between Central Health and the Regional 8 Education Service Center for cooperative purchasing services through the interlocal purchasing service known as TIPS program. And there was a memo in the packet that outlined this item that gave an overview, a synopsis, and some information. Let me read through quickly the overview. The Central Health Procurement Department is requesting board approval of an interlocal agreement with the Region 8 Education Service Center for cooperative purchasing services through the interlocal purchasing system program known as TIPS. TIPS is a national purchasing cooperative that offers access to competitively procured purchasing contracts with its membership. TIPS is housed at and managed by the Region 8 Education Service Center. What does this allow us to do? It allows Central Health to enter into vendor contracts through this cooperative that have been competitively bid. It also allows, through that process, Central Health to expedite purchasing processes that have been competitively bid and that comply with state procurement laws. Central Health Procurement has, as the memo outlines, has identified several areas of interest that they may elect to access services from. There's no cost to become a member of TIPS. There's not a cost to participate. I'll end my presentation there and answer any questions.
I'll entertain a motion.
Item number 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I will move. I move that the committee recommend the board approve an interlocal agreement between Central Health and Region 8 Education Service Center for cooperative purchasing services offered through the interlocal purchasing system, TIPS, close print.
Second.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion on the floor by Manager Greenberg, seconded by Manager Aiken. Any discussion? Manager Valdez.
Jeff, hi, thank you. I just wanted to know, why are we entering into a interlocal agreement with Region 8 when we have Region 13 in our backyard? I just
Is
was
that-
curious.
Yeah, that's where this.
They're located?
It's where they're located, yes.
Okay,
There is coverage in what you would call Region 13, our area. So there are some vendor opportunities in this area.
so I noticed that some of the TIPS purchasing cooperative would include asbestos abatement.
That's one of the number of service
Since we
areas.
just approved a contract, if we had waited, would there have actually been is there a way to know whether or not that we would have gotten a break? I'm just curious.
Oh, I couldn't apply.
Okay, well, lots of stuff here.
Yes, there is.
Okay. Hopefully we can save some money in the future.
Yes, I think so.
No other questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Manager Greenberg, seconded by Manager Akins. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. Any abstaining? Motion passes. All right, items 6 and 7 will be taken together in executive session. Item 6 is discussed and take appropriate action on a ground lease agreement between Central Health and Travis County Emergency Services District 11. And item 7 is discuss and take appropriate action on a ground lease agreement between Central Health and Travis County Emergency Services District 4. Okay, I announce that the committee is convening an executive session to discuss agenda items 6 and 7 under section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code, deliberation regarding real property, and under section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorney. All right, let's take a little break. Is there food next door? Grab a bite to eat, guys. Good to go?
Yeah.
All right, it is 7:40. We're going to come out of executive session. We discussed items 6 and 7. Item 6 is discuss and take appropriate action on the ground lease agreement between Central Health and the Travis County Emergency Services District 11. Item 7 is discuss and take appropriate action on the ground lease agreement between Central Health and Travis County Emergency Services District 4. Mr. Giesman.
Yes, thank you. Members, in order, Emergency Services District 11 it's a long-term ground lease, 30 years, with options to extend. And the basic premise is that for $1 a year, we would construct a clinic and work in conjunction with the Emergency Services District and the UT School of Nursing to operate the clinic. What is unique about this particular ground lease is that there is a due diligence clause that requires all the parties to agree to a suitable business plan for clinic operations, and if that business plan is not developed or it's not viable by either party standards, then or by any party standards, then the ground lease does not go forward. So it builds in some business protections, if you will, to make sure that we're making a wise decision on not only where we're locating, but to the scope of services to be provided. On agenda item 7, similarly for Emergency Service District 4, it is a lease. However, it is a much shorter term lease for 2 years with the ability to extend for 1 year, 3 one-year options, excuse me. And here we don't anticipate a site-built building. Again, this is short-term, that we would locate some type of portable or modular facility. And currently working with Community Care as the right now lead clinic operator for that particular site. So what I'm asking for is that we would recommend these terms and allowing negotiations along these terms, or if not for more favorable terms, and we will bring this back to the board next week. I do anticipate changes in some of the terms that we've discussed, but again, we'll highlight those for you when we come back next week.
I'll make a motion if you.
Sure, Manager.
Could I ask real quick though, before I make a motion, I have a parliamentary question. So, because of the legal and financial nature of these real estate items, we had a pretty extensive discussion in closed session, and we typically do that because it might affect the outcome of your ability to negotiate if we were to talk in open session. So this board has deliberated quite a bit on these 2 items. With that in mind, what would I do to make a motion to limit discussion?
After you actually.
After I make the motion?
So you would ask the chair to recognize you, and you would make a motion to limit discussion.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, so I make the motion first? Okay. So, so that would be my preference. I'll make the motion on both of these items together, since we discussed them together.
Can we discuss them? Can we take them together?
What's that?
So you want to make both motions together. So what I would do is just make very clear before you make item 7's motion that you say this is for item 7.
Okay. And then I'd like to limit discussion. So I move, this is item 6, I move that the committee recommend the board approve a ground lease agreement between Central Health and Travis County Emergency Services District 11 for land located on Kellum Road, and authorize Central Health's president and CEO to negotiate and enter into an agreement on terms similar to or more favorable than those presented to Central Health. And for item 7, I move that the committee recommend the board approve a ground lease agreement between Central Health and Travis County Emergency Services District 4 for land located on Hunters Bend Road, and authorize Central Health's president and CEO to negotiate and enter into an agreement on terms similar to those presented or on terms more favorable to Central Health.
Second.
Second for both of them?
Yes.
And then I would just like to make a motion that we limit any further discussion to 15 minutes.
Okay, all right.
Would you accept a friendly amendment?
Probably not.
The friendly amendment is that we do not have discussion, since we had so much discussion in executive session.
That's
Given how friendly your amendment was, I'll accept that.
Thank you.
So we have a motion by Board Member Daniel, seconded by Board Member Valdez. Any discussion? Okay, all right. I don't see any discussion, so let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no.
You're voting right now on the motion to limit discussion to
Right.
no
To
discussion.
eliminate.
No discussion,
Not
okay.
on the items of
All right.
this.
Okay. So we're voting on the limit discussion. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. Anybody abstaining? All right. So now we're gonna go ahead and take agenda item 6.
We're doing
No,
it
take the
separate.
motion.
10-7.
6 and 7,
together.
okay.
Can we do it separately?
I think we have both motions on the table.
Yeah.
We made them together.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to abstain from 6 until we have the issue that I discussed and at least resolved.
We'll vote separately on each motion. We just made the motions together, so we can vote separately on
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
So, so agenda item 6,
May I read it again?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's just do them separately this
All
time.
right.
With withdraw the motion,
For item 6, no, 7.
the joint motion.
Sorry.
You're withdrawing your joint motion.
Oh, make it all over again?
Yes.
Okay, so I am
Yes.
going to make a motion on item 6. I move that the committee recommend the board approve a ground lease agreement between Central Health and Travis County Emergency Services District 11 for land located on Kellum Road, and authorize Central Health's president and CEO to negotiate and enter into an agreement on terms similar to or more favorable than those presented to Central Health.
Second.
there's a motion on the floor by Manager Daniel, seconded by Manager Valdez. There was a motion already to no longer have any discussion, so all in favor say aye. Aye. All against say no. Anybody abstaining? So let's show that Manager Musaitif is going to abstain. The motion passes. Manager, item 7.
I move that the committee recommend the board approve a ground lease agreement between Central Health and Travis County Emergency Services District 4 for a land located on Hunters Bend Road, and authorize Central Health's president and CEO to negotiate and enter into an agreement on terms similar to those presented on terms more favorable to Central Health.
Second.
So Manager Daniel makes the motion, Manager Valdez seconds the motion. Again, there was a motion already that says we're not gonna have any discussion, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. Anybody abstain? Motion passes. All right. Agenda item 8, discuss and take appropriate action on the sublease agreement between Central Health and the Integrated Care Collaborative, the ICC. Stephen, let's make this quick because I'm gonna lose my quorum.
Good evening, again, thank you. This is a very brief ICC leases space from a landlord, joint tax on behalf of Central Health, subleases space from them. This is a renewal of Savannah's existing lease terms. ICC renewed the lease.
Have you started over, or are we good?
We got it.
So this is a renewal of a lease. We're doing one-year terms because we have other plans potentially. So Joint Tech will sublease space from the Integrated Care Collaboration for another year. They also pay operating costs. And when it's a basic tenant, Tech leases some of the space and the additional shared space, and they share the operating costs.
Do you need a motion?
I'd like to entertain a motion.
Okay, I move that the committee recommend that the board approve a sublease agreement between Central Health and the ICC for approximately 9,000 square feet of office space to be utilized by Central Health and the Joint Technology staff, and I'm assuming that's our enterprise.
I'll
Joint
second.
Technology staff, correct?
Get a second, Moran?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor by Manager Valdez, seconded by Manager Musaitif. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. Anybody abstaining? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Manager Daniel, I know you believe. And Manager Musaitif, you believe too?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you both.
Now you're going to lose a quorum.
Huh?
Yeah, you're going to lose a quorum.
Well, we could still have discussion, or what do you?
No, you don't have a meeting.
So we technically will adjourn the meeting, and if you want to have a discussion, okay, but you really can't carry on any more business.
Okay, so Manager Daniel is our board member on the Budget and Finance?
Yes.
Members, if it helps, my portion, just to give a brief overview on Sendero, I can put in memo form or put it on the message board. I was planning on giving an open session anyway, and then just distribute it.
Okay.
It was very general, type terms, and so that's, I think we can take care of it that way.
Do you need a motion that stipulates that or not? Consensus? So that we can move for adjournment?
Just need to confirm the next regular meeting time.
All right. Let's go to item 13, confirm the next regular committee meeting date, time, and location. Is that okay, Council?
Yes.
Okay. The next Central Health Board of Managers Budget and Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 14th, 2018 at 5:30 at the Central Health Administrative Offices, 1111 East Cesar Chavez, Austin, Texas, 78702.
Move adjournment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thanks.
Thank you, members.
Thanks.